The wind howled like a wild beast. Snowflakes flew sideways, sharp as knives. The ice storm had covered everything. Trees, rocks, even roads. It was the kind of storm that made most creatures stay inside. But not him. The man, tall, in a thick coat and goggles, walked slowly, step by step through the snow. He wasn't just exploring. He was returning from a trade stop 2 miles away. He had tools in his bag, but now he just wanted to reach home before nightfall. Then, he stopped. He heard something. Faint. Almost drowned in the wind. Was that a cry? He held his breath and listened. Again. A soft sound. Almost like a whimper. It wasn't an animal. It sounded like a child, scared, weak. He looked around, white, nothing but ice and snow. His boots crunched as he turned and walked toward the sound. With each step, the cries grew a little clearer. Then he saw it. Tiny footprints, light, unsteady. They weren't human prints. 3 small toes, claw tips barely poking the snow. An alien child? Alone in this storm? The man didn't wait. He followed the trail. It twisted between icy stones and snowbanks. Then, behind a frozen log, he saw a small body, curled up, shaking, almost covered in snow. She was tiny. Not more than 5 years old, maybe 6. Her skin was pale violet. Her eyes were shut tight. She held a toy, made of scrap metal and string. "Hey," the man said softly, kneeling beside her. Her eyes opened, just a little, glowing, golden, and wet with tears. "Mama," she whispered, before her head dropped again. She was alive, but barely. The man didn't waste a second. He wrapped her in his coat, lifted her carefully, and started walking back. The snow felt heavier now. He leaned forward, protecting her with his own body. His steps were slow but steady. The storm didn't care. The cold bit at his face. His hands went numb, but he didn't stop. After almost half an hour, he reached the metal door of his cabin. It slid open with a creak. Warm air rushed out. Inside, he placed the girl on a soft blanket near the heater. He removed his coat and checked her pulse. Still beating, but weak. He added more wood to the heater and rubbed her hands to bring warmth. She looked so fragile. Her clothes were torn, her feet bare and bruised. He wrapped her in a thick blanket and gave her a little water with a spoon. She coughed but swallowed. The man looked at her, puzzled. Where were her parents? Why was she alone in a storm like this? As the girl rested, she kept murmuring in a whisper, "Mama, Mama." She held on to the toy tightly, as if it gave her strength. Then she opened her eyes again, slowly. "You, human?" she asked in a broken voice. "Yes," the man said gently. "And I found you." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "Mama told me to hide. She went back. She never came." The man's heart sank. "Back where?" he asked softly. She weakly pointed outside, toward the east. "Big rocks. She said she would find help." The man frowned. That path led deeper, into the snowfields, dangerous, rocky, and now fully frozen. If her mother had gone that way, she might still be out there. Or worse. He placed a hand on the child's head. "You're safe now," he said. But his eyes looked back toward the door. His mind was already racing. A mother, out in that storm. Injured, lost, searching for help that never came. And now, this little girl lay in his shelter, saved, but incomplete. Half of her heart still out there. The man stood and pulled his coat back on. He looked out the small window. The storm was still strong, but lighter than before. He didn't know the mother. He didn't know what kind of alien she was. But one thing he knew, no one, human or alien, should be left alone to die in an ice storm. Not if he could do something about it. He grabbed a flashlight, tightened his scarf, and opened the door again. Cold air rushed in. Snow hit his face. He stepped out into the white wind once more. The storm had not ended. It only changed its voice. The wind still screamed, but now it came in short bursts, like angry sighs from the sky. Snow swirled and danced like ghosts across the frozen land. The man walked carefully, one foot after the other, deeper into the white death. His coat was heavy with frost. His breath came out in clouds. But he didn't stop. He could still hear her small voice in his head. Mama. Went back. And now he was going back too. The girl slept quietly in his cabin, safe, warm, alive. But her mother, somewhere out here, was not. The man tightened his scarf and kept moving. His flashlight flickered. The storm wanted him to turn around, but something stronger kept him going. A feeling, a duty, a strange pull inside his chest. After 20 minutes, he reached the old rock path. Big stones stuck out from the ground like broken teeth. Between them, just snow. But under that snow, someone might be waiting. He scanned the area. Nothing moved. No sound, no voice, just the wind. Then, he saw it. A torn piece of cloth, caught on a branch. He moved quickly now. Behind the rocks, in a narrow gap, something lay half covered in snow. A shape. A body. He dropped to his knees and brushed the snow away. It was her, the alien mother. Her skin was the same pale violet as the child's, but colder, almost blue now. Her face was turned away, buried in her arms, her hair frozen in strands. She was wearing almost nothing, just thin cloth. Her hands were wrapped around herself, trying to keep warm, trying to survive. The man leaned close. He touched her neck. There. A pulse. Slow. Weak. But it was there. She's alive. He whispered. Her lips were cracked. She tried to move, but couldn't. Her voice was no more than air. Child, yes, the man said quickly. She's safe. She's at my cabin. A tear fell from her frozen eye. The man didn't wait. He lifted her gently. Her body was stiff and heavy. Her fingers were bleeding. But she didn't resist. She was still breathing. Barely. Back at the cabin, the little girl woke up. Her small body was still cold, but she sat up and looked around. The fire was crackling. The room was warm, but something was missing. She ran to the door, but it was shut. She touched the window and looked outside. White everywhere. Just snow and silence. She whispered, Mama. Then the door opened, and the wind followed. The man stood in the doorway, arms full. The alien girl gasped. Mama! He carried the mother to the bed and placed her gently down. She didn't open her eyes, but she moved slightly. The girl crawled to her mother, tears falling. I told you she would come back, the man said softly. The girl hugged her mother's arm. She came back because you brought her. The man didn't answer. He just began heating water and mixing herbs. Old human survival medicine, made from plants and salt. He poured it into a cup and slowly helped the mother sip it. She was still shaking. Her body had been too long in the cold, but now she was not alone. The child held her hand. The man sat beside her with warm towels. Hours passed, and slowly, the storm outside began to die. But inside the cabin, a different storm was passing, the storm of fear, of death, of loss. It wasn't over yet, but the worst had been fought, and won. As the night came, the girl fell asleep beside her mother. The man stayed awake, watching the fire. He didn't know their names. He didn't know where they came from. But somehow, he knew this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. The cabin was quiet. The fire burned low, its soft light dancing on the walls. The alien child slept with her head resting on her mother's chest. The mother still lay weak, her breathing shallow but steady. The human man sat near the door, coat still damp, boots still cold. But his mind was not in the room. It was still, outside, in the storm, in the snow, in the place where he found her. He kept thinking, why was she out there? Why send a child one way and go another? There had to be more. And then he remembered something. As he had carried the mother through the snow, he had stepped on something small, but hard. A crack sound. He thought it was just ice. Now, he wasn't so sure. He stood quietly, not wanting to wake them, and stepped outside again. The night was still cold, but the storm had passed. A thin moon hung above the clouds. Everything was white and quiet. He followed the path again, retracing his own footsteps from earlier. It didn't take long. In a gap between two frozen rocks just where he had picked up the mother, he saw it. Something. Shiny. He knelt and pulled it out from the snow. It was a metal badge. Dirty, scratched, but it had writing on it. Alien writing. He couldn't read it, but he recognized one thing. A military symbol. She was a soldier? That didn't make sense. She looked like a mother, not a fighter. Then, next to the badge, he found something else. A small pouch frozen shut. He broke the ice gently. Inside were pictures, badly damaged but still clear. One was of the little girl, smiling, holding a flower. The other showed the mother in uniform. The human man's heart beat faster. She was more than just a mother. She was someone important. Someone running. From what, or from who? He turned to leave, but then his flashlight hit something else. Another trail. Not footprints, but drag marks, like someone had been pulling something heavy through the snow. He followed it. It led around the rocks and down a small slope. And there, half covered by ice, was a bag. A large sealed case, heavy, with a broken lock. He opened it and froze. Inside were tools, weapons, maps, communication chips, and one thing more, a locator beacon. Broken. She had tried to call for help, and failed. Suddenly, everything started making sense. She had escaped from somewhere. Maybe a battle, maybe a camp. She had her child. She was wounded. Her beacon failed. No one came. And in that storm, she made the hardest choice. She sent her daughter west, toward human settlements. And she went the other way, toward the rocks, maybe to hide her military gear, maybe to protect her daughter from those chasing her. The man looked back toward the cabin. She hadn't just been running from a storm, she had been running for her life. When he returned, the mother was awake. Her eyes met his, golden, clear, tired. "You went back," she whispered. He nodded and held out the badge and pouch. She didn't reach for them. She just stared. "I had to hide it," she said weakly. "They would have killed her if they knew." "Knew what?" the man asked. She looked toward her sleeping child. "She's not just mine," she whispered. "She's half of them." The man's breath caught. "Of them?" "Her father was human," she said. "Long ago, before the war began." The room fell silent. Now he understood. That girl was a secret, a danger. A symbol of something forbidden between two species still healing from war. And this mother, half dead in the snow, had risked everything to keep her alive. "You didn't just save her," the mother said. "You saved a truth I thought would die with me." The man looked at the child, now peaceful in sleep. He had only followed a cry in the storm, but what he found was something far deeper. She opened her eyes slowly. The light inside the cabin was soft, golden, warmer than any place she had known in years. Her body still ached. Her hands were wrapped in cloth. Her legs were weak, but she was alive. And so was her daughter. The alien mother turned her head slightly. The girl was sleeping, curled up beside her. Her breathing was steady. Her little hands gripped the corner of the blanket. The mother closed her eyes again. A tear rolled down her cheek. Not from pain, but from something deeper, something she had not felt in a long, long time. Safety. She remembered the night before, the snow cutting her skin, the weight of her gear, the broken beacon in her hand. She remembered hiding the case, whispering to her child, "Go west. Find the humans. If one helps, trust him." She hadn't expected it to work. She had expected to die alone. But now, she was here. Alive. Because a human man, someone she had never met, had carried her through the storm. No weapons. No orders. No reason. Just kindness. The man walked in quietly, holding a warm bowl of soup. "You're awake," he said gently. She nodded weakly. "I found your case," he added. "And your badge." Her eyes didn't panic. She was too tired to hide anymore. "You've seen it all then," she said. "You know what I am." He sat on the edge of a chair near her. "You're a mother," he said. She blinked. "No one's called me that in years." "You carried that child through an ice storm," he said. "That's all I need to know." Her lips trembled. "I stole medicine from a military camp," she said. "I fought my own kind to escape. I hid in trash ships. I walked through dead zones, just to keep her away from them." "Why?" the man asked. Why was she in danger? She hesitated. "She is what they fear," she said. "Born from two sides that once tried to kill each other. A child of peace, in a world that still remembers war." The man looked at the sleeping girl. "She's just a kid," he said softly. The mother gave a broken smile. "That's what I told them. And they called her a mistake." She tried to sit up. Pain shot through her body. He helped her gently. "I can't stay here long," she whispered. "If they're tracking me, they won't find you," he said firmly. "The storm wiped every trail." She shook her head. "Storms don't stop scanners. Or soldiers." He looked at her and said, "You don't have to run anymore." "You don't understand," she said. "They don't stop. If someone learns you helped us, I don't care," he cut in. She went silent. For the first time, she looked at him fully. "You don't know me," she said. "You don't even know my name." He smiled a little. "Then tell me." She paused. "My name is Lyra." He nodded. Lyra, a simple name. But to him it now carried weight. A name he'd risked his life for. A name that had survived ice, pain, and silence. Later that night, Lyra held her child close. The man, whose name was Caleb, sat nearby, cleaning old solar panels and listening to the wind outside. There was peace now, but in the back of his mind, questions still stirred. Would someone come looking for her? Would he be ready? And most of all, why did this alien mother's love remind him so much of his own? Lyra whispered a lullaby to her child, one she hadn't sung since the child was born. Her voice was weak but warm. The words were from her planet, but the feeling was universal. Caleb listened, and though he didn't understand the words, he understood everything. The next morning, Lyra woke before the sun. Her child was still asleep, curled up safely beside her. A blanket covered them both, soft and warm. The cabin was quiet. The fire had burned low. She could smell something, cooking, something strange but not unpleasant. She sat up slowly, her body still sore. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached for the edge of the bed. That's when she saw him. The human man, Caleb, was in the small kitchen, stirring something in a pot. He hadn't noticed she was awake. His back was turned. He was humming, a tune low and peaceful. Her eyes narrowed. She watched his every move. He was calm, gentle, too gentle. It didn't match what she'd learned about humans. In her world, humans were always described as dangerous, cold, violent. They came with fire and steel. They conquered. They didn't help. That's what the elders taught. That's what she believed. Even after he carried her through the storm, even after he gave her food, warmth, and safety, a part of her still whispered, "Don't trust him. He'll want something in return." She had trusted before, years ago. It almost destroyed her. Caleb turned and saw her awake. "You're up," he said with a small smile. "That's good. Your skin looks better." She didn't smile back, just nodded. He didn't seem offended. "I made soup," he added. "You should eat. You lost a lot of strength." She stayed quiet. He brought over the bowl and placed it beside her. Then he stepped back, giving her space. She stared at the food for a moment. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. Caleb raised an eyebrow. "Doing what?" "Helping me. My child, you don't even know us." He leaned against the table and folded his arms. "I don't need to know you to do what's right." She scoffed. "That's not what I've heard about humans." He nodded slowly. "Yeah. I've heard plenty about your kind too. Not all of it kind." She looked away, ashamed. "But," he continued, "my job isn't to prove stories wrong or right. My job is to be human, my kind of human." Lyra looked at him again. Her voice was lower now. "I've seen what your kind can do, and I've seen what yours can do," he replied. "But we're not all monsters, Lyra." She was quiet for a long time. Then she spoke softly. "When I gave birth, it was in a hidden shelter. Only one other person knew. A healer. She kept us safe until they found out. When they came, they called my daughter an error, a crime." Caleb's jaw tightened. I ran. I ran through cities, over mountains, across stars, just so no one could take her from me." She paused. "And still, I feared one thing more than all others." He tilted his head. "What?" "Meeting a human." Caleb knelt down so he was level with her. "You feared me," he said. "Yes. And now?" She didn't answer right away. Then, slowly, she looked at her child. Still sleeping peacefully, fingers wrapped around the blanket. And she whispered, "Now I don't know what to feel." Later that day, while Lyra rested, Caleb stepped outside to fix a broken sensor on his roof. He stared at the sky. The storm had cleared completely. The air was crisp. Sunlight glowed on the snow, but something in his gut didn't feel right. He climbed down, walked to the side of the cabin, and checked the signal tower. The backup power had blinked once, a small flash, which meant something had pinged it. From far away, someone was searching, and someone might already be coming. Back inside, Lyra sat holding her child, rocking her gently. She looked around the cabin, at the tools, the books, the half-broken furniture Caleb had repaired with care. It wasn't just a shelter, it was a home, something she never thought she'd find again. And now, she feared losing it, but not because of him. This time, it was the outside world she feared. The snow had stopped falling outside, but inside Lyra, another storm was building. She had barely slept. Even as she lay wrapped in warmth, her eyes kept drifting to her child, checking her breathing, touching her hand, brushing strands of hair from her little face. Every soft cough made her heart stop. Every movement made her sit up in panic. And then, just before dawn, it happened. The child's body went still. Too still. Lyra sat up, heart racing. "Myra," she whispered. "No, answer, Myra, wake up." She shook her gently. Still nothing. She touched her daughter's skin, and it was cold. Too cold. Lyra's breath caught in her throat. She tried to call for Caleb, but her voice broke. Instead, she cried out, louder this time. "Caleb!" The door burst open in seconds. Caleb rushed in, half-dressed, eyes wide. "What happened?" "She's not waking up. She's cold. I don't know." Lyra's words came out fast and broken. Caleb moved quickly. He placed his hand on the child's chest, then her forehead. "She's crashing," he muttered. Too much cold damage. It's delayed shock. Her organs are slowing down. Lyra froze. I should have kept her warmer. Should have known, she began, tears filling her eyes. No, Caleb said firmly. You did everything you could, but we're not losing her now. He grabbed a case from the shelf and opened it. Inside were syringes, packets, and a strange metallic patch. What is that? Lyra asked. Human medtech. Very old, but it works. He injected a dose into the child's arm, then stuck the patch on her back. It lit up with a soft pulse. Lyra knelt beside him, shaking. What do I do? She whispered. Hold her, he said. Talk to her. Keep her here. She needs a reason to stay. Lyra pulled her daughter into her arms. Her hands trembled as she held her close. Myra. Myra, please, she whispered through tears. You're not allowed to go, not now, not after everything. Caleb watched. The child wasn't responding yet, but the patch began to blink faster. Her pulse, though faint, was still there. She's fighting, he said. Lyra nodded, tears falling. I used to tell her stories, she said softly, her voice breaking. Even when we were running, even when we were hiding in trash bins and cargo rooms, I told her the stars were full of good things, that there would be a better place. She brushed the child's cheek with her fingers. I lied. I didn't believe it. I just wanted her to hope. Caleb was silent. Lyra looked up at him. But then, you found her in the storm. You didn't turn away. You didn't trade her. You didn't ask questions. Her voice cracked. You made it true. Caleb knelt beside her. She made me believe again, too, he said quietly. Minutes passed, slow, heavy, like the storm had moved inside the cabin. Then, Myra stirred. Her fingers twitched. Her head turned. Ma, she whispered, barely audible. Lyra gasped and pulled her tighter, crying harder. I'm here, little one. Caleb smiled faintly. The patch on her back gave one final pulse and then shut off. The worst had passed. Later, Lyra stepped outside. The first rays of sun touched the snow. She stood there quietly looking up, her arms still wrapped around her daughter. Caleb joined her with 2 cups of hot broth. She's going to recover, he said. Lyra nodded. And I was wrong about humans, she said slowly. Caleb didn't reply. She looked at him. I've seen armies, soldiers, death, but I never saw compassion. Until now. He handed her a cup. I'm not the only one, he said. But maybe I'm the first you've met. She smiled, just a little. I don't want to run anymore, she whispered, but I'm still afraid. You're not alone, he said. Lyra looked down at her daughter, now wrapped in blankets and safe in her arms, and for the first time since her world fell apart, she believed him. The days passed slowly, but not in fear, in healing. The snow outside melted little by little. Inside the cabin, the cold no longer ruled. Warmth lived in the fire, in the blankets, and in something more. Trust. Lyra sat near the window, her daughter Myra resting peacefully beside her. Her cheeks had color now. Her breath no longer came in gasps. She smiled when she slept, and Lyra smiled too, but not out of habit, out of hope. Caleb was outside chopping wood. The rhythm of his axe matched the beating of her heart. Steady, strong. She watched him through the window for a while, thinking about everything he had done. Not for reward, not for pride, just because he couldn't walk away. She still remembered her people's stories, tales of humans burning planets, taking resources, conquering galaxies. But none of those tales ever mentioned a man kneeling in the snow, pressing warmth into a frozen alien child's hands. None of those stories spoke of kindness. Later that evening, Caleb brought in a bundle of fresh kindling and looked toward the bed Myra was awake, sitting up and smiling. "Feeling better, little star?" he asked. Myra nodded shyly and looked at her mother. Lyra gave a small nod of approval. The girl walked over slowly and hugged Caleb's leg without saying a word. Caleb blinked, then smiled wide. "Well, I'll take that as a thank you." Lyra watched them, and something inside her softened completely. She had run through cities, climbed walls, crawled through vents, and fought her own kind, just to keep Myra safe. But this little moment of peace was something she had never been able to give her daughter, until now. And it wasn't because she found a perfect world. It was because she found one imperfect human with a perfect heart. That night, Lyra sat across from Caleb at the small table. They shared quiet bites of soup while Myra played with pieces of broken tools near the fire. Lyra finally spoke. "Could have sent us away, turned us in, closed your door." Caleb looked up. "I could have. But you didn't." "No," he said softly. "I didn't." "Why?" He thought for a moment, then said, "Because one day someone helped me, when I was just a scared kid far from home. He didn't ask who I was. He just gave me food and let me sleep by his fire." Caleb looked at her. "I guess I wanted to be that man for someone else." Lyra nodded slowly. "You are." She reached into the pouch Caleb had found in the snow. Inside was the old military badge, the one she once wore proudly. She placed it on the table. "I don't want to run anymore," she said. "But I can't go back." "You don't have to," Caleb said. "I want Myra to grow up with laughter, not hiding. I want her to play outside, learn things, maybe even go to a human school one day." Caleb smiled. "Then stay. Here. With me." Lyra's eyes widened slightly. He continued, "I have enough supplies to fix up the side room. She can have a bed of her own. And if you want work, I can teach you repairs. You'd be good at it." She stared at him, surprised. "Just like that?" she asked. "You'd share your home, your life?" "Yes," he said simply. "Because sometimes sharing is the most human thing we can do." Tears filled Lyra's eyes, but they didn't fall from sadness. For the first time in years, she didn't feel like a fugitive. She felt like family. She stood up, walked over, and extended her hand. He took it without hesitation. "My name is Lyra," she said again, but this time with strength. "Mother of Myra, former soldier, and now, someone who finally understands what compassion means." He nodded. "And I'm Caleb, just a man in the snow, who opened his door. Outside, the stars began to appear. Bright. Peaceful. Inside, Myra laughed softly as she stacked broken screws like toys. Lyra and Caleb sat quietly side by side watching her, no longer strangers, no longer afraid. Just a human, an alien, and a child. Together, no longer running. They had found something stronger than safety. They had found home.